Hello and welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. I am Kerry. Joining me today is Eric.
Hey, I'm Chaos, and I don't have to host this one. Yay! Kerry does. Great.
Yay! We also have Ian.
Hey, I'm WeiryWriter.
And of course, last but not least, we have David.
Hi, I'm Windrunner on the forums as well.
And I am K-chan on the forums. Hey, we have the original crew back, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
It's been...
The olden days. The Shardkeepers days.
Yes. The hashtag OG Shardkeepers
That's
coming
right.
back to you for some more Oathbringer to our Words of Brandon.
Yeah, maybe. Well, who
Because
knows
there's
how
a
far
lot
we'll
of
go.
them.
There's a lot of them.
Yes, you guys did an amazing job asking Brandon lots of awesome questions, and we got lots of awesome answers, and we are going to take as much recording time as we need to answer as many of them as we possibly can, because we like reading them, and we figure you guys probably want to hear about them as well.
Yeah, so many of, a lot of comments just say, wow, I didn't know any of these things. Now you're going to be in the know. You're going to know all the top tier new Words of Brandon.
And of course, we were able to gather these so quickly for our podcast thanks to Arcanum.
Woo!
Cheering for yourself there, Weary.
Yes.
Hey, he
I mean, it's a
freaking
joke.
deserves to
Oh, yeah.
to cheer for himself because Arcanum is amazing. If you guys haven't visited that already, you can go to
wob.coppermind.net.
and check out all of these Words of Brandon yourself. If you ask him something and receive an answer, you can also add them yourself.
You can upload. You can transcribe things. It's great.
We're always looking
Shout
for
out
more.
to Mestiv for coding all of this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Putting up with
his.
me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's a god amongst mere mortals. I think he deserves a shard. Also, he's like the nicest person ever too. So
Yeah, so shout out to Arcanum and all of our lovely Arcanists. We are always looking for more people to join the fold, so hop on over and take a look. It's awesome. You won't regret it. Unless you haven't read the book, then why are you here? Go read the book.
that's true.
We'll
You
wait.
will probably regret it in that case. Oh, because I screwed this up last time. Spoilers for like everything in these quotes. I did this like halfway through the last podcast, Kerry. It was really great.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's pretty safe to assume, guys, if you're listening to Shardcast, there are probably going to be spoilers. If we say it's spoilers for a specific thing, you're probably safe if you've read that just one specific thing. But if not, just assume general spoilers.
Yeah,
Probably pretty likely, especially on the tour when people are asking
Yeah.
a whole bunch of variety of questions.
Yeah.
So, you have been warned. We will wait. Our file will still be here after you have read the rest of whatever you need to read.
That is true.
So let's get into it with the San Diego signing. We have this lovely question. When Wax dies, he sees a red cloud haze. What is that? And Brandon answers, the effects of another shard trying to do something. When asked who it was, Brandon raffoed it.
I mean, we kind of figured it was a shard. So,
Yeah.
but it's nice to have confirmation on that.
So this is Trell, the entity referred to as Trell in
Right,
the books,
Yes.
which is probably another aspect or avatar
Yeah.
of autonomy.
Yes.
That is the leading theory.
That seems pretty solid at this point, now that
Yes.
we basically know that autonomy's doing this. So
Yeah. What really makes me curious is whether or not autonomy actually has to travel there to like drop off an aspect, or if it can just send them out. So if this is like the
Oh,
actual
that's a good
full shard
question.
is near there, or if it's hopping in and off Taldane all the time, or if it's even on Taldane full time. But
well, that's an interesting point, because I think last time we were talking about Podji, and I think last time we were kind of saying that we were under the impression that autonomy had to go there.
Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, because in the letter that we're pretty much all sure is from Autonomy at this point,
Yeah, it is.
They mention that another aspect of their being has begun to manifest in a place.
I guess that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was kind of going that Pudgy,
you know, maybe there's like an AoE, like a...
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if there's just like in an area of influence that like, oh, hey, another thing can kind of pop up, or...
Oh, like Creep! And Zerg in StarCraft. You're nearby, you can just go over there. Kind of. Interstellar Creep. Easy.
It's for a Kazmir analogy, perhaps the Feign life. That
well, we don't know anything about those.
The famously well-known Feign life.
If you've read the Liar Partnell preview chapters, you
Which
kind
the
of
link
have an
is
idea.
currently broken, but
They're fixing it. They're fixing it.
Yeah.
You guys, Autonomy is the Zerg, confirmed. You heard it here first.
That's true. Nailed it. Except instead of one central hub, there's all of them. Okay, this analogy kind of took a train derailing. Took a train derailing. Yep, that's what I said.
Eric, you have the best quotes this episode. I'm just going to say that right now.
It's like a train derailed and was set on fire. There we go.
Okay. The brake knot has been broken.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Though this word of Brandon that we got with the red haze does lead perfectly into a word of Brandon from the San Francisco signing. David, read that for us.
Alrighty. This comes to us from First Selector. They ask, does red in the Kazmir signify one shard co-opting or corrupting another shard's magic? To which Brandon responded, yes.
Which I am very thankful that First Selector has this question, because this was definitely one of my theories coming out of Oathbringer. Because at one point, Shalash remarks on the light of corrupted investiture, like seeing that during the Battle of Thalen Hills or whatever it's called.
The Battle of Thalen Field.
Okay.
In fact, we don't have to come up with a mysterious name for this on the Coppermind. It's set in the books. Oh.
He's called the ATM Wars. It'll work well.
No, definitely not. My question on this is, what the crap's up with the thrill then?
I believe that is another.
Is it?
Word of Brandon. I don't know if it's in our doc, but it is not in our doc, but it was a question.
Quick, find it on Arcanum.
Yeah, I am doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because we already know that it's the thrill is of the unmade, and the unmade are corrupted.
Mm.
Well, we don't know if the unmade are corrupted.
They were unmade, though, from something.
They were unmade from something. And
okay, this is from the London signing.
Okay.
It's if red investiture equals co-opted by another shard, what about the thrill? Brendan's response, kind of.
Great.
Yeah.
Which,
I'm really glad we took the time to
yeah, I believe that has come up before on the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is the hard-hitting analysis and quotes you're here for.
Yeah.
But you have the unmade, and they are either corrupted or unmade from something else, or they were made by Odium, sort of like, but he's still co-opting the idea of entities and what have you. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Basically, how in Lord of the Rings, the orcs were made in mockery of elves. Maybe the unmade were either unmade from Spren or made in mockery of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been working on the unmade articles for the wiki, and off the top of my head, they are all either red or black in color. So I'm not sure. It'd be odd to me that one of them would be red when they were all, in theory, in my mind, unmade in a similar process. That only one of them would have been red because of corruption. But
I suppose I do have the theory that they were unmade from the Dawn Shards. So
I mean, I guess that's better than my current theory, which was red doesn't always correspond to this, but Brandon basically did just say yes, it's corrupting another shard's magic.
I guess it does put me in mind of hemalurgy, Because, you
Yeah.
know, blood is red.
Hmm.
That's true.
Yeah,
Well,
kind of.
not always.
Well, no, but like
listeners have orange blood.
Well, yeah,
orange has red in it though.
Okay,
snap.
well, that's true.
Yeah,
Oh,
There are
Oh.
some crabs that have blue blood. I'm sure those exist. in
Are you going to
Kazmir.
hemalurgically spike a crab to test this theory?
Probably not.
I think there's actually a quote. Oh no, there was a quote that said you can't spike plants. That doesn't work.
yeah, they're not alive enough.
You cannot grab attributes from plants.
Too bad.
Well, Brendan has said that blood is an important factor.
Yeah.
That blood being in motion.
Unless you're
No.
stabbing a Spren in the cognitive realm, in which case they probably don't have blood.
I think that's weird and is an edge case and not the way
Well, I don't know how that
Hemalurgy
even
was-
work with
Yeah, that's
hemalurgy
true.
necessarily. Like you
That's pretty
maybe
much
shouldn't
just
even do that.
capturing investiture.
No, he said you have to do that, Eric, to get if you were gonna spike into it. If you were gonna like make yourself a radiant with spikes, you need to spike the Spren in the cognitive realm.
Oh,
Yeah,
huh.
fun
Okay.
facts. Uh,
Well, I mean, they're okay, but their physical forms are different in the cognitive realm versus the physical.
That's true.
they're usually
So
similar.
do they have blood in the cognitive realm?
They can't be hurt. We're getting a little far off track. of
Yeah,
this one.
That's okay. Oh,
Going back though,
Yes.
with the previous quote we just talked about, we just saw a red haze above
Yeah.
Scadrial.
Yeah.
So that does beg the question. So, assuming this is an aspect of autonomy, in theory, a lot weaker than Harmony. Like, is it trying to co-opt or corrupt something on Scadrial?
and also the faceless immortals that
Mhm.
the set had, which we don't have a name for. It'd be really great if we did. Their eyes are red.
Mhm.
They glowed red. So
And the
Australian red?
fused
It's got
Stellium
red
has red
spots on it.
specks.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Trillium referring to the spikes that Bleeder has in Shadows of Self,
Oh right,
which
yeah,
does
that
not
is
have a canonical
that's not a canonical name at all.
name, but
but
is canonically associated with the entity referred to as Trell.
great. Which just rolls right off the tongue. So yeah.
Yeah.
God. Yeah, because I imagine autonomy didn't just, move over to Scadrial. Harmony would probably not be cool with that. So
No.
Just imagine the whole island lifting up and floating through Shadesmar.
So it's really weird to think about what happened there because it definitely was implied that Harmony was real busy fighting off that red haze.
Yeah, like it was,
So-
he was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like he's just like, oh, psh, not even a big deal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, we don't. These aspects or avatars, we don't know their power level or how much like investiture they all have. Or
Presumably
even
less
really
than
out-
2 complete shards, though.
Well,
Yeah, but to be fair, Sazed
True.
has he's already said that because of the nature of holding ruin and preservation, he's basically paralyzed, and it takes a lot of effort for him to do pretty much anything.
that's true.
First of all, and second of all, we know Sazed as a person. He's not going to pull a Rashek and start throwing things around to try and get rid of autonomy.
No,
He's
that's
going
only
to be
me.
very careful to not upset things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's also the matter that Sazed is still a relatively new vessel. Like
Mhm.
this is probably his first direct
I mean, that's
conflict with
conflict.
another
certainly-
shard.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Whereas autonomy, whether this is Bobbin herself or an aspect or avatar, whatever, that entity has more experience of how to
Yeah.
fight.
And Trell has been around since before the Lord Ruler's ascension.
Well, but if that is the same Trell that was worshipped, in the
Yeah,
past,
which Brandon's
is
always
not
rafoed.
confirmed.
Yeah, Brandon's
Yeah.
always rafoed that, which
Mhm.
I tend to think that it's a co-opted thing rather than
Yeah, I
than
would agree.
the old thing.
Yeah, and that does remind me of one of the more interesting quotes I've heard from Brandon, which was someone asking him about the Harmony versus Odium fight,
Right.
and he was like, Harmony's way, way stronger than Odium. Why would, what's the big deal? And Brandon said, well, who's more powerful, Elend or Vin? And they said, well, Elend. And he said, who'd win in a fight? Definitely Vin. So that's definitely something he needs to be watching out for.
I mean, that's right. I remember that. That was a really good one.
So moving on to Portland, we have a bunch from these.
Oh yeah, Calderis was here at this one, recording this one. One of our arcanists.
Ian, go for it.
So the questioner asked, does any of the 16 actually like Hoyd anymore? And Brennan said that yes. At least one of the 16 likes him.
Well, that's good.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, in the letters, it doesn't really seem like Endowment really likes Hoyd that much. Really.
Well,
I don't think like played into it.
Well,
yeah,
sure.
she doesn't like what he's doing. It doesn't, reflect her personal feelings about Hoyd as an individual, but rather,
That's
hey, quit meddling in our agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to wonder why he's not writing a letter to the Shard that likes him, though.
He probably is. It just hasn't shown up yet in the
Fingers
books.
crossed. But yeah, I'm trying to think if we have any ideas among the Shard holders that we know that we could even speculate who would, but definitely not cultivation. That's all I can think
Yeah.
of.
Not cultivation, not race.
Probably not.
Wait,
Paladin.
why do you say Cultivation doesn't like Hoyd?
He said that there's only one woman of his age on Rashar when he was talking to, I think it was Adeline. I can't remember. Words of
Oh,
Radiance.
no, you're right.
Yeah, he's like, and she never
Never
cared
got
for
along
me.
well.
They did explicitly say this.
Yeah, and he calls her Slammer, whatever that means. So
Well, there you go. That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, Hoyd did seem to like Tanavast. They had drinks together, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess maybe
He's
they
a
were
pleasant guy to have drinks with.
buddy
Yeah,
buddy. with-
Tanavast is also dead, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that doesn't.
Can't
Hopefully,
write a
there's
letter to
some. I was almost said undead. Some living shards
Yeah.
who like Hoyd, not undead shards.
I was to say, because, they said one of the 16, so it very well could be that the shard, parentheses, S, that liked Hoyd are already dead.
That would
really
be
tight
nice.
with Laros
So-
and
Yeah.
Sky and Aona. They were all really good friends.
Race is just killing all the shards that like Hoyd. That's really the story to begin with. Except Ulada. Screw Ulada.
Race just wants his friend back, so he's killing all of Hoyd's other friends.
This is just a story of high school cliques gone wrong.
Yeah, that's the Kazmir. You want me to read
Eric,
this next one? All right.
Yeah.
If Nightblood was to be used by a Scadrian, would that person have to be an investiture fairing, which, stores Nicrosil, stores investiture with Ferrochemy? Brandon said, no, you could be burning any metal, and Nightblood would co-opt it and feed off that.
Which makes sense. And
Mhm.
burning
Totally makes sense.
Burning a metal opens a conduit directly to preservation, and you are invested by that.
It's just very different from how we see Nightblood feeding off Breath or Stormlight, so it
Mhm.
is just very odd.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder too, because you see Nightblood, and it seems like the longer you have him drawn, the more energy he starts burning through more rapidly. So if you could as a misting, if you get to a point when you wouldn't be able to at least safely draw enough energy to feed him anymore, because it seems like you can flare a metal, but you can only flare it so high before.
That's
Yeah,
probably when you die.
Yeah.
Pro
Yeah.
tip, don't try this with pewter.
Oh, yeah. This just seems like a really bad plan. But
Yeah.
very cool.
Doing anything with Nightblood is a very bad plan.
That's
mean,
true.
If it were an emergency, you could probably do it short term with iron or steel because they have such a long burn rate.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's not a good idea to sustain it over long periods of time.
Oh, could you think of the Lord Ruler compounding? Not even a concern in terms of energy with Nightblood. That'd be something.
That sounds like a
That
great
would
question.
be
someone could ask.
terrifying.
Lord Ruler with Nightblood. That just reminds me of threads where people who'd win a fight, Vasher or Lord Ruler, and I think I wrote the Lord Ruler would just put a coin through Vasher's skull. It is.
Unless he's got a command that says catch coins, and he's in the clear.
Well, I would be very lucky, but the Lord Ruler. Yeah, anyway, this is not important, but the Lord Ruler with Nightblood that would be an interesting question.
So moving on to, could a Threnody Shade survive on another world? The answer is theoretically yes, but they are highly invested in leaving a world where you're highly invested behind when you already have that investiture is difficult, as Kelsier discovered and as most Spren discover.
Which goes along with a lot of other things Brennan has said, where it's technically possible, but it takes a trick that most probably don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because we see this with Vasher. Vasher is technically a cognitive shadow, and he has left this for Roshar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess.
Wonder if connection has something to do with it.
I'd say probably.
Yeah, you have to like
connect yourself to the new realm or to the new investiture.
Yeah.
And I mean, depending on how much you like believe the broadsheets, like apparently Nas has that gun that like actually shoots shades out of it. So if that is on some level accurate, then you know, he's obviously figured this out somehow. Although I'm not sure a shade would actually be able to consciously want to go somewhere. They don't seem really too there.
Canonically, shades are not as aware as other cognitive shadows.
Yeah. The other thing is, I wonder what that threshold is for investiture to leave, because we see Demo, he's an Adium misting. He's, you know, more invested than regular Scadrians.
Yeah, but he's not as invested as a Spren.
Sure. But like Kelsier's the example here that Brandon said, and so I'm just kind of wondering what that threshold is.
He also has still has a connection to the physical realm.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Kelsier doesn't, so he's restricted at a lot of what he can do.
Okay. I need to take a drink of water because I'm not reading these quotes very well here. So no, you're totally right.
Moving on.
This is a good one. So the question is: a friend of mine wanted me to ask, was the cataclysm that rocked Ashen and forced its inhabitants into the flying cities, which we learned about from Arcanum Unbounded, the Rashar essay, or if you read the Songs of Divine sample chapters, was it investiture based or was it Shardic? And if it was it Shardic in nature? Brandon said the same cataclysm, and then wants to know if they finished Oathbringer, and he said yes. The same cataclysm that they were fleeing, that they caused, is the one that forced people into the skies, which basically confirms that Ashen is where the people who live on Rashar now came from.
Ashen is the Tranquil Halls, you guys.
We don't need to talk about this anymore. We don't need to talk about this anymore.
Unless they came from Yolan secretly, Eric.
No, stop it. No.
Yeah, gotta love those Yolish flying cities.
Who knows what will actually be on Yolan when we get back to it? Like,
I'm guessing dragons.
Well, at least one.
Yes, I would bet on there being dragons there. That's true. I agree.
And Feign life.
And Feign life.
Maybe a lot of Feign life. Yeah.
Maybe it's all Feign, whatever that means.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if we'll one day see how some people manage to. If the flying cities just already existed and just happen to be floating around. No, I said to force people into the skies. Like, how did people successfully create a flying city while the world was blowing up around them?
Well, wasn't they... The essay did say that there was like a ring of habitation there. But it's like, if you wanted to leave that ring, then you'd probably need to be in a flying city.
It just said patches, which I assumed were the cities, but I don't know.
The people
it might have said surface.
The people there already had magic, so I'm guessing that magic was involved.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably just like an emergency. Holy crap, you guys, this is happening. Quick, I have an idea. We'll build a city in the sky. And it was just like this Hail Mary chance of them putting together some kind of magic technology to make it work. And hey, it worked.
Yeah, they had the surges. So they're probably an application of gravitation or something along those lines.
I guess, although if you read that, and this is not canon yet, obviously, but if you read the Sans Divine sample that Brandon read, it, at least at the time, they seemed to believe that it was their disease magic that had caused.
But it's been, 4,000 years?
We don't know when that was set, so.
Yeah. But at the same time, the Rosharans, they don't know what happened with the Recreants at all. They would have absolutely no idea what actually happened.
Yeah, it's I find it very understandable that they know it was their magic. The only magic around that they really know is the disease magic. So it makes sense that they would conflate those two, whether or not that is actually.
Oh, yeah, it definitely wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. But good. We don't have to talk about Ashen being. Ashen is the Tranquil Halls. Good.
Yes, if your friends try to argue with you, link them to either that word of Brandon or this podcast.
Oathbringer Portland signing.
Although maybe the Iriali are from Yolen.
Well, that's possible. They're from a lot of places. The Iriali. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on.
So we did refer to this a little earlier, but is the metal that Bleeder was associated with and had, is the shard associated with that metal the same entity that's calling itself Trell? Yes.
Well, that's good. You really have to state things very specifically so Brandon will answer something like that and not just raffo it. So good on that person.
Yeah, good phrasing there.
Calderas asks, biochromatic breath. The reason that it avoids snapping, is that because it's so heavily in the physical realm, or is there something more to that? Brandon, something more.
Which, in my mind, snapping is really a thing for end positive magic systems, where Investiture is coming from somewhere else, and coming into you through the system and stuff. Whereas end neutral, the Investiture is coming from you and returns to you, which is what we see with Furugami and with Awakening, because you supply the breath, you get the breath back. Investiture is neither lost or gained.
I guess the oaths are kind of like snapping in some sense.
Yeah. Because it mentions that, you need a broken soul, whether or not how accurate that is, and it's like you're bonding with Spren.
Yeah, and think of all of the... Yeah, sorry. But think of all the moments where we see people swearing their oaths. It's not like they're walking down the street all super happy, everything is perfect, and they're like, life before death, and they get a Spren, yay!
Just Lopen.
Yeah.
Just Lopen. But yeah, totally true.
Yeah, snapping is basically when you need outside investiture to get into your spirit web, which is not really applicable here, because you're born with it.
True.
Or it could just be Maybelline.
You never know.
I was wondering if someone was going to make that joke.
Hey.
All right, so now we're moving on to Houston. The quote that Dalinar says at the end of Oathbringer, I am unity. Is that something that happened specifically because Honor is dead, and for all those different reasons that was able to happen? Also, Odium said he had ascended. He wasn't supposed to ascend, but he did. Brandon, I am totally raffoing all that stuff. I knew people were going to ask about it. You're just going to have to wait and find out. I'm honestly surprised somebody even tried to ask it.
I'm not, because a lot of people have asked.
I would rate
Unity.
this. That's a podcast that we're gonna do.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
100%.
I absolutely want to be on that one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just something that big. You have to really, really try to squeeze something out of Brandon.
Yeah, when it's capital A ascend and a shard says it. That's probably important.
That's significant right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But who knows what that means in particular. We'll do a podcast on that for sure.
Yes.
Questioner, about the end of Elantris, the 10th anniversary edition.
Yes.
Which has an extra scene on the end, if you have not read that. It's really pretty cool. When Hoyd is speaking with the Dark Sion, I was wondering, what is that relationship there? Is he working with them or for them? Brandon, more alongside each other. Is that something we're going to see more of in the future? Brandon, probably.
Now, it's important to note that that is not a Sion.
That's right.
That is a Skazy.
Yes, from Skay.
Which is, Sions are of Dominion. Sions are of Devotion.
There we go.
Skazy are of Dominion.
There we go.
Yeah, and they play a role in the Fjordell Empire. They have a significant hand in politics there. And
great. We'll just wait a decade till we get those books.
It won't be a decade. They're soon.
Yeah, they're sooner than Nightblood.
Oh,
yeah, and this is Brandon we're talking about. I mean, for all we know, tomorrow he's going to tweet out, "Hey guys, I really wanted to write something in Elantris, so you're getting a new book in 3 months."
Yeah,
never know.
Secret project.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting to see Hoyd like working alongside like ostensibly the bad guys in this though, because in theory you're not terribly sympathetic to the Fjordell Empire reading through Elantris. So
No.
usually we see Hoyd on the good team, but
I think this is a case of Hoyd is not on the good guy side. Hoyd is on Hoyd's side.
Yeah.
And Hoyd is on not Odium's side.
Yeah, right. Anyone who's not Odium, he'll even send mails to Bobadin, who apparently has a grudge with Hoyd has a grudge against, so or an avatar of Bobadin. So
yeah. So this next one, are they able to make a hemalurgic spike out of god metal, or does that not work? Rapho, we will be releasing a hemalurgic table before too much longer.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
We do know that it's possible to make hemalurgic spikes out of god metals.
Well, yeah, Adium was. So.
Yeah, Adam and Brandon has said that you could make one out of Lerasium. It would just be a gross misuse of its potential. So,
Yeah,
like,
let's see.
you can do it. Whether what abilities they have, except for
steal
Adium,
an
which can do
ability
anything.
or get all of them. Which do I choose? But yes, give me that hemalurgic table. Gimme.
Yeah.
When we have video podcasts, which will come eventually, you will see my glorious allomantic table and ferrochemical table, and I need that hemalurgic table.
the number 2,
And-
right?
Well, because you asked, they are assigned number 1 ones. So
So if you get the number 1 hemalurgic table, Eric will probably
spike you.
yeah.
Yes, you heard it here.
Yeah. And this
The
is
cops
probably
are coming to my door right
yeah.
now.
and they're probably releasing it for the 10th anniversary leatherbound of Hero of Ages. Most
Crazy
likely.
though. That's just crazy because we have so little of the hemalurgic things. Like, what would the Nicrosil, Chromium, what would those hemalurgic abilities be? That's crazy that we're actually getting one. I thought it'd take a lot longer.
I guess, but I mean, like when the ferrochemical table came out, like there was some cool stuff, but like a lot of it, like just we were like, oh, what does that mean? They're like, oh, identity, fortune.
Yeah,
I
what
feel like
does
we're gonna see a lot
investiture
of.
mean?
Yeah, it's gonna be a little while before it means anything to us. Is my thought.
Sure, but like, yeah, if you think about the ferrochemical table getting identity connection, turns out that was pretty important.
Was
I would rate that important. Give me that table. I need it yesterday. If 2 shard pools were described the exact same color, like emerald, would that mean anything significant? Like the investiture is from the exact same source? Brandon, not necessarily. Not necessarily. So, that's good.
Which this ties into the whole shardic color theory that gets
Right.
bandied about
Yeah.
repeatedly. That every shard has a color, which it's a lot more complicated than that, I think.
Yes. Good.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that's just right here in there. That's a very linkable quote to just say, hey, not every shard has a unique color here.
Yeah, I mean, clearly color has significance in the Kazmir, like we just talked about earlier in this episode, but it
Yeah.
seems to be a little more complicated than that.
Just because the Midnight Mother's black doesn't mean it's from Ruin, obviously. Like that's kind of the logical
actually
leap
a
you
great
cannot make.
idea.
No, you're fired.
So now we have Dawn Shards. So
From
they
Page
what?
From Page Runner.
From Page Runner, yes, sorry. They obviously predate the arrival of humanity on Roshar. Are they of Odium? Are they odious investiture? And Brandon just straight up says, I will Rapho Dawn Shards.
Good on you, Page Runner. You're doing Harmony's work, really, on this. But yeah, obviously that was wrapped out.
But it's still worth asking, because now we have a definitive, yes, he's going to Rapho Dawn Shards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, like, honestly, it's the thing with Raphos is like, yeah, obviously we want to get real answers, but to me, there's almost another layer of information on what Brandon Raphos when. Like,
Yeah.
Will asked Brandon, Like, you know how you have Elendel from Elend? He asked who Lutha is and got Raffoed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And so the fact that Brandon has said, I will Raffo anything to do with Dawn Shards.
Could be important. So sometimes
We'll
Raffos
see.
aren't
Yeah.
important, but
These seem pretty unimportant to me. I'm sure this won't go anywhere.
Dawn Shards aren't important. Yeah.
But if no one ever asked,
Mhm. We would know.
that.
Yeah, and it's rare for him to say, I'm going to Raffo everything to do with these.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the Set's Faceless Immortals, like, I'm just not going to talk about these. Okay. Not surprising.
This is from Cadmium. With Nightblood, was the sheath part of its construction when he was awakened, or was that kind of afterward? Brandon. The sheath is not part of its construction. Good question. So when the intent was placed on it, was the sheath there? So the sheath was not relevant to that. The sheath was not part of the original awakening, and it's not part of the intent or anything like that. I'm not saying it wasn't there ready for it, but if it is not part of the sword in the same way. So at some point we'll figure out why it learned to stop once it's in the sheath. Yes, kind of. It's a function of the sheath, which we now know to be made of aluminum.
Yeah, which dampens all investiture. So
Yeah.
it's good that it's there. Otherwise, Nightblood would just keep eating and eating and eating.
That's true. Like, if you just awaken it, and if Shashara held it, that would be...
Bad.
Yeah.
Immediately bad.
Immediately very bad, but it wasn't used until the Battle of Twilight Falls, right?
Mhm. It was not, yes.
That was a while later. I got the impression.
So it kind of sounds like they knew they needed a off button and made the sheath, and then made Nightblood and immediately sheathed him.
Mhm. Yeah, Nightblood sheath is interesting too, because I think it mentions in the Warbreaker annotations that even, like, you'll notice, like, Vasher, like, not unsheathing it fully and just, like, opening the clasp, and it still is more deadly than it should be. Like, he's still stabbing people with the sheath fully on. And Brandon mentions that, if I recall correctly, it literally, like, if it's used even unsheathed a little bit, even though the sheath is aluminum, it still becomes part of the Nightblood weapon and, like, more deadly than it otherwise should have been, which is pretty interesting.
Yes, it is.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. So moving on to the Chicago signing. So what we see at the end with the Unmade, and it seems like Yezrian getting trapped in gems, is that basically possible because they have been, particularly in the case of the Heralds, infused with so much investiture that they are basically being trapped in the gems instead of Stormlight? Which, that's a convoluted question. But Brendan's answer is, they're not
Yes.
human anymore. Yeah. Which we know the Heralds are cognitive shadows. They are literally infused with investiture to prevent them from moving on to the beyond. So
Yep. Kyrgyzstan asks, was aluminum weird before the metallic arts were created? Brandon.
That's good to know, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense because it's throughout, it seems like through all the Kazmir, so it would be weird if it was created
Mhm.
with the metallic
Yeah.
arts. So,
So
that makes sense.
why is aluminum so weird?
Adenalcium, spiritual realm.
Brandon
Other
needed something that would
buzzwords.
counter investiture to make things interesting.
Probably.
I mean,
That's the writer.
that's true.
Yeah.
It does make me
That's the
wonder,
writerly
like,
answer
what
right
other
there.
substances are out there that would have different effects on investiture.
Phew.
Hoyt gets his tooth knocked out while in Kolinar. He prompts somebody else to help him with that. Is this because he has issues hurting not only other people but himself? Yep. And this is from Matrim, by the way. And then he considers healing that at a later point in time. Which magic system does he consider using to heal that? And Brandon says a magic system that predates any of the others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's not terribly
Yeah.
surprising.
I mean, Hoyd can basically shrug off like a Shardblade attack, so I'm not surprised he can, like, regrow a tooth. But
No, that's not particularly.
it's good to confirm it's not just, like, he's got like some sort of other healing he's picked up while, shopping for magics throughout the last several thousand years.
Shopping for magic. I love that phrase.
Whoa.
From Z-Man966, there's an expensive steel chain in the shops in Celebrant. That's how I say it. Is there anything significant about that?
Yeah.
Brandon gave them a Rayfo card. This is such a big Rayfo, super big Rayfo.
And so this is referring to the chain in chapter 102 of Oathbringer. And it's described as a long, thin, silvery chain that is not steel. However, I think it might be dragon steel.
That would be cool.
Oh, that
It'd
would
be
be
cooler than
awesome.
aluminum.
No, because it is described as silverly in the sample
I think so,
chapters,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Isn't it? Yeah, it totally is.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. That would be a really, really cool thing to have. I'm not sure why.
Ooh.
There's not much in the sample chapters to indicate why dragon steel is so highly valued, aside from the fact that it can be molded into stuff easily. It does not change once it has its
It does
form.
not change.
So that means
once
it's-
it is
but,
molded into a thing. It is always in that form.
So this is
That's what the
basically
sample
an
chapters say.
unbreakable chain. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd want it, because the ends would be really broken. I guess we'll see.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of cool stuff you could do with awakening with it too. You have a chain that's unbreakable.
Ooh, new theory. Nightblood is awakened dragon steel. There you go.
No.
You heard it here first.
So, the question is dragon steel invested?
Boo.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well, do you want me to read my Adium quote? Because that kind of talks about
Yeah.
weird stuff
Read
being
Go for it.
invested or not in. So, this is a great question that I got from Spool of Wool. Thank you. Because there's been some discontent, because there's been a quote that says Adium's not invested, but or that it is invested. There was some confusion because people were wondering why you could push and pull on it if it was invested. Anyway, so I asked at the Aurum signing, is Adium invested? Brandon, is Adium invested? Adium is investiture distilled into the physical realm, right? So is electricity electric, or is it? And I said, well, I think the question Sharders had was, if it's invested, how can people push and pull on it? That was the struggle. Brandon, Adium breaks a lot of rules in the same way that you'll see other things break rules. Adium plays weirdly. When you get distilled investiture, you're starting my kind of rule for myself is it's like when you start going on the quantum level, the rules just start playing weirdly. Because it's what realm does Adium exist in is another thing. Because pure investiture, that is like a mini black hole, right? It's like existing in 3 realms at once, kind of, and things like that. There's a lot of weirdness. The writerly answer is there's a lot of weirdness because when I built Adium, I didn't have the rest of the Kazmir built, right? So it breaks a lot of the rules I later set up that everything else has to follow. So the writerly answer is that we just have to accept that Adium and Lerasium and some of these other distilled investiture things are going to play very weirdly with the magic systems. But that's okay. Nightblood will too, and some of these things that were built even after the Kazmir was coming together.
So, that would make sense, or that does make me wonder if Dragonsteel would be able to be pushed or pulled on, because he said some other things, leaving that open. But, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because it's been brought up that Dragonsteel might be Aidenalzium's god metal.
It's also an interesting peek behind the curtain, because Brandon makes the Kazmir come together so well and talks about having wanted to do the Kazmir from the beginning so much that it gives the impression that he knew all of the rules of the Kazmir before beginning. So it's really neat to see him be no, actually, I kind of had to finagle this around a little bit.
Like the perpendicularity in Elantris. He had no idea what that thing was when he wrote Elantris.
Yeah. But we do know that Dragonsteel, in particular, is... there was a dragon in the sample chapters that had Dragonsteel on the dragon itself, hence the name. So that's all we really know of it, as well as Dragonsteel in that version of the Shattered Plains was kind of why there were plateaus, because there were Dragonsteel fonts on it, I think it was. That's why, Dragonsteel doesn't change, so these plateaus don't change.
The idea was like it leaked into the ground, and so like the ground around the fonts became immutable, and all of the other stuff just eroded away.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question from Blightsong: the Singer forms of power, do they utilize fabrial magic? No. Similar. They're based on the same kind of foundation, but no.
Yeah, I tend to think that the same foundation that we're seeing here is the fact that like Fabrials can manipulate the 10 basic surges that we're seeing in surge binding that we're seeing, and what the fused use that are in the Fabrials is probably what he's getting at.
Yeah, it's basically they both capture, spread, and do stuff.
Yeah, which is kind of how you deal with surges. Then last one from Chicago. So I have a question about surges. So in this book, they use this very spiritual adhesion. Do all of the surges have applications in each of the different realms? Brandon: to an extent, yes, but some of them are more focused on it than others on different levels.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I always assumed that Kaladin's not going to be doing spiritual adhesion. The Bondsmith's going to do that, right? So, like, you could have one Radiant do something differently than the next Radiant.
Yeah, it's kind of the point of having things be different.
Yeah, right. Exactly. When you're having these shared surges.
And now we're on to some others of the Oathbringer London signing that we missed last time.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we cherry-picked a few notable ones from London because they involved...
just really the prodigy thing.
So here we have, is there any reason why Odium's known as the Broken One? Has he got some part of him ripped off? Has he had any investiture ripped off of him? Brendan, has he had investiture ripped off of him? Yes, asterisk.
I'm not liking Brandon's new trend of using asterisk instead of just like giving us vague hints around things, because now we're just like, oh, okay.
Anytime he says asterisk, that's a podcast. But the Broken One, I think, definitely should be a podcast, because this is a big topic, which relates to Odium saying at the end, "We killed you," referring to Honor.
This also ties into
at the end of Oathbringer.
a conversation between the Stormfather and Dalinar, where the Stormfather says, like, he might be willing to do a battle of champions because he's unwilling to open himself up to an attack because he's been wounded before. So this is probably the wound that he does not want repeated.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Makes sense.
So this is from Calamitous Emotions. There's a little pun in there. Nice. Have we seen any evidence of hemalurgy on Rashar? And as sort of an addendum, given the end of Oathbringer, was what happened to Jezrien hemalurgy? Brandon. There are certain Kazmir philosophers that would count it. I would divide it as two separate things that are using similar fundamentals. I wouldn't call it myself, but there are people who would disagree with me in world. Have we seen evidence? I would say no evidence that is easy to pick out. But it's there, Brandon. Yes, there are people with hemalurgy who have been to Rashar. I'm pretty sure they've been seen on screen.
Are we referring to the
possibly
there at the end?
Either that or like Ayatilla's got like a secret spike that you don't know anything about,
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's
or,
possible.
just like some character that would have one. We just don't know has one.
True. True, but that's kind of going off of what Feather said, that she was thinking of hemalurgy, and similar.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because hemalurgy is Kazmir wide, so I'm wondering like where else they'd be pulling this from.
Yeah, I think that's why there are scholars in world that would count it as hemalurgy.
Yeah,
I would probably agree with the in world scholars on this, that it's pretty hemalurgy-y.
Yeah, the only weird thing is the gemstone. That's what trips me up. But
yeah, and there's no blood because he's a cognitive shadow.
Well, he has a body, so he has blood.
True.
So.
But that's different from getting sucked into a gemstone versus blood flowing around the spike.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next one I've brought up a few times before on the podcast. It's from Gavin's son Odegaard. How does cultivation figure in this conflict between odium? So what people assume is that cultivation is hiding. I would disagree with that. People in world would assume that.
Yeah, there's a difference between hiding and strategically laying low and spreading your roots underground to do your work for you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that just her influence on Dalinar alone constitutes a major overturning of Odium's plans. She stole his champion from him that he'd been grooming for decades.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
But
also, who would win in a direct fight? Odium, right? So obviously she can't just be out in the open where he can come and smack her around.
Although Odium is worried about her, because I think he mentioned that he would destroy the Stormfather if he didn't think it would leave him, if he didn't think he'd be open to an attack from a cultivation.
Yeah.
Vulnerable.
He would probably win in that conversation, but there would be consequences. He wouldn't get off scot-free.
Well, Odium wants to kill every shard, so he can't get too wounded in this conflict. Once he's done with Roshar, if he wins, he's going other places. I would assume he's not going to win.
It's a book,
because it's a book.
Yeah, we'll have to see with Lif too, being another person who has dealt with at least the Night Watcher. Another probable big level influence from cultivation, if not directly, at least indirectly.
This next one, questioner: will you ever make a book based in Shadesmar? Brandon: yes, I will actually. There's one that I've plotted in Silverlight. Whether I'll be able to write it as a whole book or whether I'll be able to do it as a novella, I'm not sure yet. But I do actually have a plotted out story with Chris as the protagonist in Shadesmar. Yeah.
Have we had confirmation before that Silverlight is in Shadesmar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we had confirmation that Chris is the protagonist up until now, though, or at least I had not seen
of this novella. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. This is good. Untitled Silverlight novella. Chris being the protagonist. Anything that has Chris or Hoyd as the protagonist.
That'd be hard to have. I don't know. I guess it would work. She'd know a lot, though. I'm curious when it would fall in the overall timeline. Yeah.
In the timeline? Yeah, totally. Because that could happen. Who knows when that could happen in the timeline? That's crazy.
So from what little we know about the Will Shapers, I'm really interested in them. Is there any really tiny tidbit about the order that you could tell us, even really small? Brandon's answer: one of the first orders that I developed when I was building the magic systems was the Will Shapers. Very excited to do a story about them.
So for someone who's better at remembering that side of the Knight's Radiant table, what surges do the Will Shapers have?
Cohesion and tension.
Okay. Do we know which ones those are?
Cohesion is you can leave a handprint in stone. Tension is you can make cloth rigid.
Okay. Because I'm feeling that the handprint in stone one is when we were seeing the fuse that were taking rocks and squishing them in their hands and whatnot. That felt similar to me.
I thought they had transportation and cohesion.
Oh, they might.
You're right. No, you're right.
Yeah, they do.
It's stone
that
wards
was
have
the stone
okay,
wards you were
yeah.
describing.
Oh yeah, stone wards. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will
all
shapers
right,
have
yeah,
cohesion and transportation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because will
okay.
shapers are after
Mhm.
Elf
There we
Scholar,
go.
stone ward, bondsmith. Okay.
So that's exciting to see because I really like the will shapers as well because of their whole like oddity and adventure, and they're kind of one of the weirder orders,
Mhm.
according to the other Radiants anyway. So
Yeah, right.
That'll be
right.
cool to
Yeah,
see.
no, exactly.
That would make sense too with Venli being, the very first. They would have the very first member that is a singer as well.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, from Worm Hero, we've seen what Shardblades look like in Shadesmar. What does spikes look like, Brandon? Like hemologic spikes? That's a Rafo. You will see eventually.
That's a question I never
I'm not sure I want to see that.
No, but that's something I never even considered.
But we kind of do see them.
Yeah,
because
haven't we?
Yeah, in Secret History, Kelsier is there when all of the Koloss are slaughtered
Yeah, that's
by
true.
the people of
That is
Fabric
true.
City. So he sees the souls of the Koloss. There are spikes around there. But there's nothing really mentioned
Well,
about that.
It can't
I
be
think-
crazy.
I'm just remembering that the Deadeye Spren are not located in the same location as their corpse, the Shardblade, in Shadesmar, right? Because
Not
well, they
necessarily.
try to
they
go
try to
to
go
it.
be
yeah,
close.
They try to go to it, but that means they're like not in the same locations.
Yeah. They're connected through the spiritual realm, so they don't have to be in
Right,
the same
but
location.
I don't think hemolurgic spikes would follow that same principle because they're not corpses. So it's pretty different in my opinion.
Yeah, they're a fragment of somebody's soul.
But like, could those Koloss spikes, whatever thing like the Deadeye Spren would be, they wouldn't need to be in that same location necessarily.
I guess, but I feel like a spike.
I
don't
feel
know,
like
maybe.
it's
I just
different
let the
too,
spike
but I'm just
fragment.
throwing that out
Yeah,
there. That if
It's possible. Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, but that's not even a question I would have considered really.
Mm-hmm.
How would Nightblood work when drawn on schedule? This kind of goes back to a previous question. So you would have to be actively burning a metal or tapping a metal mind, or Nightblood would eat you very
I
quickly.
think that last one didn't reference tapping a metal mind, but that's good to get.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah.
The question did. Brandon's answer.
Well,
did
this
not.
one has
Mhm.
Brandon answering it, so that's good.
Yeah.
I actually used this in the new version of the Furukumi article
Oh,
I'm
great.
writing.
Bingo.
Nice.
Oh, this is so good that I get this next one. We know AT chose how Ruin was interpreted, in that he was a card-cackling maniac. Could someone so differently interpret a shard as to change its name to be something different? Could someone pick up the shard Ruin and think, I'm the shard of change? Or could someone pick up the shard of honor and think, Brandon? Hesitantly, yes, to an extent. The interpretation, what you call a thing, I think it would be arguable either way in world, regardless of what they call themselves. There are those who would say the core intent is still there and you can't shift it that far. And others would argue you can shift it far enough to change the definition to a synonym. You see evidence of someone claiming this in the books. I'm not gonna confirm or deny for you whether that is actually a thing or not.
I'm inclined to think it is a
I'm
thing.
inclined to think it is
Well,
not a thing.
I would also like to point out that Brandon uses the word intent unprompted.
There's a quote about that later, but yeah, I think we've gotten under his name, under his skin there with that word. Kind of like with Shardholder, we kind of got there eventually until he canonized the thing.
Yeah.
Which
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the term that he knows we use for
Right.
that thing, whether or not it's a canonical term.
are we?
Mhm.
Yeah. So he's like, sorry, I was like, he's just speaking our language. He's
Yep.
being
Yeah.
courteous.
Which is why I'm not usually a fan of when people try to change the words that we use to refer to a thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, everybody knows it as that thing. Brendan knows we refer to that thing as that
Yes,
thing. Don't confuse
true.
things.
Yeah. It seems like he referenced
Yeah,
odium
that's
there
what I was
in the end,
thinking
though, when he
too.
said you see evidence
Oh,
of
yeah.
someone claiming this
that
in the book.
odium, I'm
So,
passion, right?
mhm,
I have always been under the impression that
mhm.
you very limitedly get to change things. Like, I
Mhm.
do not agree with this questioner that Ruin chose to be a card-cackling maniac. I don't think that's what happened here. I totally disagree with that interpretation of what happened with AT.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, these are... I remember long ago at Alloy where I asked, and Brandon said that, like, holding a shard, it's kind of a fight between wills, and the shard always wins. You don't get
Mhm.
to change that. I just don't agree that you get to change it much, if at all, and if so, it doesn't matter, because Odium's still Odium, and there's still that burning hatred that Dalinar sees, regardless if Odium says he's passion. Like, he could have introduced himself as passion, but that aspect of himself is still there. It's totally irrelevant. This entire thing is irrelevant, in my opinion.
See, I do think that it's possible. I don't think it's particularly easy at all.
But you're not
But I think
changing
that-
what the shard is.
Not permanently.
You're changing.
No.
No.
Right. What
The
Brandon
shard
is
is what
talking.
it is.
Yeah, Brandon
Brandon
is
has-
talking very subtle here.
Brandon has said that shards can choose how to
They're
apply
interpreted.
their intent.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I definitely think that if somebody else were to hold the shard, they could be passion. But because it is race and the way he views the world, the hatred of passion is dominant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
think that the shard? Wait, are you saying you think the shard is passion and odium specifically? His personality is making it lean towards odium. Because I was thinking the reverse, that the shard is odium, bearing the weight of God's own divine
Yeah.
hatred, as
Right.
Brosterhoid said, and
I
that he
think
wants to
it's-
be passion.
It's complicated.
Yes.
that- Because race is the one that picked it up, it is odium. If someone else had picked it up, it could have been passion.
I just don't
Yeah.
think it's
Well,
different.
okay, we see this with Ruin, right? Where AT was using Ruin as a very destructive force, and he was claiming, yeah, all things have to die, but he was also totally being a gigantic jerk about it. But you see Sazed as harmony, and yes, that a lot of that is because he's holding
Right.
preservation as well, and the struggle, the balance between the two shards tempers that. But even in the very beginning, the way he uses Ruin is as the natural manifestation of entropy without any real malice behind
I don't-
it.
Interpret Ruin in Hero of Ages to have malice there. There's no malice in what he's doing. He's just, this is what I was owed. All things must
True.
end. I don't think there's much malice there at all, actually. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I still see a difference in how AT did it versus how Seiza did it.
It's just interesting.
It's very
Yeah,
subtle.
no, it is.
It is subtle.
It's super subtle.
Like Brandon is talking. We're talking millimeters here, not miles.
Because AT was kind and generous once. So this is the Shard one eventually. And I think as time goes on, the less that your original your shaping of this shard matters at all. Like eventually
Yeah.
you're like two different lanes, but you're getting dragged toward this. And as time goes on, in 10,000 years later, two different people take up that shard. It's basically going to be the same, and it's not really going to matter. I don't think.
I would,
Mm.
to a certain extent, I would agree.
'Cause
But
And also, Brandon is talking about you're changing it to a synonym of the same word. You're not going from odium to happy, fluffy sunshine time.
Yeah, right. That hatred, that burning hatred that Dalinar sees is going to be there, regardless of who picks it up. Now, if it was shattered differently, then
but there's an old phrase that there's a fine line between love and hate. Burning passion, yes, that's very easily interpreted as hatred, burning hatred. But I think there is a case to be made that you could be the Shard of Passion, still have that burning hatred, but it not be the focus.
Yes.
That it's just like I'm burning all of this passion instead of I'm not just focusing on the hatred. Because we see when Odium opens up to him,
it's
like
all those things.
Yeah, like the burning hatred is like the focus of that, but there's a whole bunch of other passion.
Well,
there
the
too.
burning hatred was actually the last
that's the
one
core
that
of who he
Dalinar
is. That's his interior.
That's
the focus of what he is.
Okay, I guess in my mind here, like Odium is trying to present himself as passion. So, but like at his core, he's Odium. If it was the other way around and he picked up a shard that was passion, his personality had made it so that he leaned towards Odium, which from what I'm understanding, seems to be what you're thinking. He would probably want to introduce himself as Odium. Why would he pretend that he was something else when it's aligning with who he is naturally?
I
mean, he's presenting a good case, like, a positive side.
Because he does mention that, like, I suppose Odium is like a good enough term.
Well, okay, here's the thing, guys. A shard's name is a pale imitation of what the shard is. It's more than a singular word. But I just, when Dalinar is seeing that Odium, I think that's the pure shard, basically totally unmarred from the vessel. Like, that totally doesn't matter at all when Dalinar took that little sip, right? Well,
I think the vessel always, the vessel is always there. Whether or not the vessel can act counter to their intent, the shard's intent. The vessel is the limiting factor for the shard.
Right. No, yes.
So, like, the vessel is always important.
Yes, but the thing that Dalinar saw isn't like being filtered through race there. That was just the pure shardic essence, that investiture and what that's
but
called.
Brandon has said that for a long time he didn't have a word for shard holder because in his mind,
that's true.
Once you take up a shard, you are the shard.
That's true.
He didn't make a difference between them.
But I just don't really think the synonym thing matters at all, personally. Like, this is an aspect of the divine that was broken from Adonalcium. It doesn't matter. Eventually, that aspect of the divine will override your puny mortal intentions in mind, and it just doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think we just fundamentally disagree.
I think we do fundamentally disagree, and I think I'm right. So there.
And any further on this, and it's going to be a podcast, right. So let's move on.
Yeah.
PSA, guys, it's okay to disagree with each other on theories.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember that fight about cultivation? That was completely pointless. This one has more points, so that's good.
Were the surges used by humans the ones that destroyed their previous home, the same as the one that the Radiants were using? And Brandon says, yes, same basic principles. Magic system slightly different, same basic principles. So it's different, but it's the same.
Then how were the Dawn Shards involved? Like, did they utilize them with their powers?
How is that any different than the comment about Fabrials earlier? It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think this is basically, yes, it was categorized as like the 10 searches, but it wasn't surge binding.
Yeah, right, exactly.
In the same way that void binding presumably uses the 10 surges, but it's not surge binding.
Similarly, how to Fabrials manipulate surges, it's not surge binding. It's a different thing.
Yeah. I still don't know how the Dawn Shards played in, though.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dawn Shards.
I don't think they did. in like the magic system itself.
Yeah.
I think they were artifacts that did stuff, or
I guess
that did stuff.
But they keep flipping back and forth between humans using their own powers to destroy Ashen, and then the Stormfather, who I consider to be a higher authority on what happened in the Deep Path, saying it was the Dawn Shards. So,
yeah,
like I feel like the two have to both play into it in some way.
Well, Dawn Shards played into the destruction,
but they keep saying that people use their powers to destroy the world as well.
Yeah,
both things are said.
Yep.
Okay.
Next one. Could two kinds of Spren talk to each other? So could Syl talk to Nightblood? Brandon, yes, that is possible, definitely.
Which makes sense. They're both kind of cognitive entities-ish. Like, Nightblood is a robot Spren, basically. That's how Brandon has described him.
Yep.
It.
Yeah.
Them,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When Lift says to Dalinar that he smells like her, does she mean cultivation or Night Watcher? Brandon, she meant Night Watcher, but Night Watcher is kind of cultivation, so yeah.
So it seems like Lift didn't meet cultivation herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Which is something I always wondered about.
From before.
yeah, and even in that scene, it seemed like cultivation herself was like mentioning how big of a deal it is that she came out personally.
Yeah, although that did happen before Lift went to the Night Watcher.
Yeah.
So conceivably she could have done it again, but I think it probably was just the Night Watcher.
Something I do find interesting here is that Lift can smell that. Well, I don't think it's necessarily smell, but she can sense that he did something with the Night Watcher.
That makes it sound way dirtier than it actually was.
This is Lift we're talking about. Like,
well,
she would totally
true.
like
that's
phrase it that way.
That's true. That is very true. Yeah, that's always a big concern, though. Like, how is Lift able to sense that? It's an interesting question. Our good friend, Overlord Jeebus, Ben, who's on last podcast. Kazmir Postal Service. Can you tell us anything about this? How many people are involved? Brandon. This is referring to how they get letters back and forth. Brandon. It is more UPS than USPS, if that makes sense. Meaning, it is enterprising individuals who are traveling and trading between planets. Some places are easier to deliver to than others.
Which, that's a very American analogy.
Yeah, when he's in London. Seriously.
For our international users, the Kazmir Postal Service is made up of private couriers, not a, like, gigantic public service type organization.
Yeah, like UPS is the United Parcel Service, which is a private company that ships stuff. USPS is the United States Postal Service, which is a public government-run entity.
That always loses money. There you go. Now you know.
Yeah, I'd always kind of wondered if like they were actual tangible letters, or if Hoyt had some other way of communicating like the written word himself. And
it's a really good question, I think.
It's Shard Twitter. Like, come on, go
Twitter,
listen
right.
to our past episodes.
David doesn't listen to any of these.
I don't listen to. I can't listen to myself. I don't do it.
There's podcasts where you weren't on, David. You can listen to those.
I know. Well, why would I want to listen to those though? Yeah, but that makes me wonder when these letters that we're seeing in the Stormlight were sent, because we know that the Void Spren have seized like the only easily accessible perpendicularity on Rashar. So I don't see them like letting through just like random couriers, no big deal. Like they've mentioned that transit to the physical realm has been cut off. So is Hoyd using just the typical perpendicularity? Were they sent before that happened?
Well, and how do you like show, if it is a physical letter, how do you like show it off to this avatar on First of the Sun? Like, I'm just like imagining opening a scroll, like, hey, I'm here.
Hold it up.
Like I don't understand how does the shard? There's a lot of questions with how these letters are sent.
I feel like a shard could just like manifest a response. Like, I'm going to rearrange those atoms to make a letter. Boom.
Well,
on their own planet,
difficult. That can be difficult to do sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's like if the courier has to go there to deliver the letter, then they could just wait 2 seconds for the shard to manifest a response.
They just throw it up into the sky and a new envelope drops down.
Pretty much.
Yeah. This I would love to see a little short story of this occurring.
Yes,
Of like Hoyd doing that or something, or
Like
Hoyd's-
an interlude. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a sweet interlude, actually. Maybe that would be an interlude later, where because the more general audience, they don't know what these letters are at all, really. If you're not in tune with the Kazmir, you're just like, I don't really know what's happening there at all. But maybe eventually we'd get an interlude and people are like, oh, that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get another letter. Got another one in the interlude.
That actually kind of ties into Mistborn Era 1, where the epigraphs were important, but he also made sure to include the relevant sections in the actual text.
That's true. The letters are the only thing that haven't appeared in world yet. Have there been any Stormlight epigraphs that have not had a direct in-world thing? I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
It's we get Oathbringer, obviously, the Dalinar things, and we got Yasna's notes, and
we got the gemstones. We got the
gemstones,
the notes,
Mythica.
the death rattles.
Mythica's mentioned, and
the diagram.
The diagram, yeah. So I think it's just the letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, give us an interlude on that. That'd be good. I'm really excited about that. That'd be good.
Get a twofer. Have the courier stop and attempt to do some illegal spren fishing.
That's right. That's right.
So we have a word for the intent/mandate. The canon word for it. Do you have a term for it? Brandon, no, we don't. And this goes back to what we were saying before.
Yep.
The fans have made up words, sort of a shared vocabulary of things that don't have canon terms, just so we all stay on the same page. We all know what each other are talking about. Like before Brandon coined the term vessel, we had shard holder. And
it's not a good term, but it was a
it was
and for a long term, Brandon didn't think there needed to be a term for
he did
and
not
then he
want
added
there.
vessel because there needed to be a word.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yes. So when you see some of these things come up and we're like, oh yeah, that's not a canon term. It's a fanon term. We need a shared vocabulary to be able to talk about this stuff.
Yep.
And
you can blame me for intent. This is my fault.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for you to read that one because of that.
Oh yeah. No, it is 100% my fault, but I got it from an annotation. So
Eric
you know what?
reluctantly takes credit.
No,
It's a
I
good
did.
theory.
Also, just quick thing. Don't capitalize the word intent. Okay?
Death of the author and capitalize it if you want.
No, because Odium uses the word intent, but not for a shard's intent. So if you capitalize intent, you're wrong. Haha. Because the capital I intent is referring to your intention in projects.
I still think you can capitalize it if you want.
No, stop it. No. Bad.
All right, you guys, with our argument about punctuation, we'll wrap it up this time. As always, you can follow us on 17thshard.com, on Twitter,
YouTube.
Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud at respective url.com/17thshard.
They're all in the description, probably.
Feel free to leave some comments, ask us questions, leave suggestions for podcasts that you want to see in the future.
Yes,
I promise you we read them.
We do.
And that is all until next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.